Welcome to Uncover the Human, where every conversation revolves around enhancing all the connections in our lives.
Whether that's with our families, coworkers, or even ourselves.
When we can be our authentic selves, magic happens.
This is Cristina Amigoni.
And this is Alex Colomore.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another special episode of Uncover the Human. We are continuing our mini-series on the book that we have coming out, and interviewing us again is Aaron Wilson. Thanks for coming back, Aaron.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for all the questions.
Absolutely. So, to you both, you say the foundation of leadership starts with the relationship to self. Why is it so critical before we even thinking about leading others? Why is that so critical?
I would say, fundamentally, we can't control what other people do and how they show up. The only thing we can control is what we do and how we show up. And even then, there's a lot of autopilot and not being fully in control all the time. And so when we think about leadership, and we talked about it a little bit in the first part too, is we are leading all day long. When we make decisions, when we figure out what to do, what not to do, when we respond to those decisions or react, we're leading ourselves. And so it really isn't this distinction of like, oh, it's all about everybody else, but I don't have to change, or it's all about how everybody else shows up, and that will make things work, but it has nothing to do with me. Like, it actually has to start with me. And as humans, understanding our own selves and what we do, how we show up, what we say, don't say, our actions, our inactions impact others and their behaviors is crucial to then creating an environment that is conducive to health, well-being, and getting to the outcomes that we want to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, really, you can't have a much better relationship with others than you have with yourself. You're going to have to be able to know yourself well enough, and it helps you understand just your own mental blocks and give you a little compassion, hopefully for yourself, which helps give you compassion for other people, because other people are also going through it. Everybody has their own set of defaults, and helpful defaults, less helpful defaults that we're all struggling with. And if you don't understand yourself, it's hard for you to give that space for others, and it's also really hard to bring yourself to the present moment enough to be able to help other people or lead other people.
Yeah. I remember we had a podcast guest a few years ago that said something like, if you go around during the day and you think everybody else around you is an asshole, maybe you're the asshole. So, it's that, like, what are you doing and how are you viewing the world and showing up to create your own reality? Because we see the world as we are, not as it is. And so how do we create our own reality? And that's our own responsibility for leading ourselves and understanding ourselves.
Yeah. So much of their work of just being a human is the painful introspection, or at times painful. I shouldn't say it's just painful. There's lots of good things about going and being mindful and having that increased self-awareness, but it can occasionally show you something about yourself that you were not hoping for, or maybe not prepared for. But it is where you can start as far as your relationship to other people. It is where you can know more about how you are, what that means for other people, and what about how you're engaging with the world may be resulting in the outcomes that you're seeing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and authenticity being the positive consequence of all of that. What does it not mean?
What does authenticity not mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would say authenticity doesn't mean being an asshole. So if you go around being a jerk and then call it, well, I'm just being authentic. And I'm like, no, you're not. Maybe you are, but are you? Does it feel good? Are you feeling good? Like, a lot of us lashing out is because we're fighting our internal battles. And if we're fighting battles, are we really in our authentic self? I like to believe that everybody's authentic self is a positive force. It's a force for positive. And so what's preventing that authenticity to come out? And so what it's not is just treating people poorly and then calling it authentic. And also what's not is wearing the mask that we all wear, all the different masks, depending on where we are. So when it's missing, we talked about culture and how it's, a good culture is harder to detect than a bad culture. And so when authenticity is missing, it's when you have different experiences of the same person depending on the environment you're in. So whether it's the experience you have that person socially versus at work is different, then you start doubting that you're seeing their authentic self because you don't know which one it is. Is your work self your authentic self, or is it your social self your authentic self? Well, neither, probably, or a combination of both. And it's also when it's lacking, and you get that sense of like, I can't trust this person because I don't really know who they are. There's a deeper connection, human connection that happens in the wiring of humans. When somebody's being authentic, you can just tell, and when they're not, you definitely can tell. Because there's just something off. And whatever that's happening, you just feel it's off. The energy is off, and you may not be as vulnerable around them. You may not be as open. You may not trust. You may also kind of be in this like trust but verify sense because you don't quite see the authenticity showing up.
Hmm.
I think that's a good way of describing it. So just to summarize some of the pieces, 'cause I think they're particularly important. It's not just a blanket permission to do anything or be anything. I think one of the ways I've recently heard it described is that all emotions are valid, all behaviors are not. Like you just because you feel angry doesn't give you the permission to go yell at everybody. If you find yourself yelling and then you say, "No, I'm being authentic. I'm authentically angry," like you might indeed be angry, but your behaviors don't have to reflect that, and that is that your authentic choice can be what you're doing with that anger, and it would be authentic to say that you are angry, perhaps, but it's not. It doesn't mean that you're just getting a blanket free pass to do anything or be anything that is destructive. And being authentic is, to your point, Christina, I think is something that we are really tuned in for. We're listening for what is genuine and not. Because it's a matter of trust. It's something we're always being sold things. We always have meeting new people. We're trying to evaluate how much we can trust anything, and authenticity you can feel, and if you can really fake it, I guess you might be able to get away with it for a little bit, but there's only so long before people will start to detect the holes, the lack of integrity, the pieces that just don't seem to quite fit. And so authenticity is not it's not really possible to fake. I don't think it's just something that you can feel and you can connect with a little bit better, and you feel like there's something genuine there, and until proven otherwise, that genuine feel is something that we're all looking for because we're all trying to evaluate our surroundings and trying to see what we trust and don't trust, and it's a fair thing to do. So authenticity is something that you can't really fake, and it's something that you just are and can't not be if you're being it.
Well, and change is hard. So what are the most common blocks you see when people try to live more authentically?
There's a number of them. Like there's, I think one of the ones that comes up first is people get worried about what other people might say. Right? There's so many voices in our head, and there's so many like narratives that we feel like we have to follow. And maybe it's from people we're currently interacting with. Maybe it's from people we used to interact with, or just from childhood, from whatever. We have voices about who we think we should be, and so it's hard to confront the hard conversations or the feeling that there's going to be some kind of conflict between you and the other people in your life, between you and the idea that you had of what things should be that might just not really feel authentic to you anymore, but you have so much exposure to that idea that you feel like things should be this way or should happen that way. It just continues to rub you the wrong way. So I think one of the obstacles is just starting to parse and trust that voice that is yours instead of the voices that you have, that we all have, that are just given to us by society, by family, by close relationships. I mean, these aren't even people with bad intentions. It's just people who happen to give us ideas that we get stuck on, that don't help us live authentically, and they come out in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, I would say it's this constant tug of war between the shoulds and all those voices, but also uh, knowing that it doesn't feel right, knowing that they are shoulds. That's why they come through as shoulds in our own inner dialogue. But also wanting to be the basic need as a human to be accepted, to be part of the tribe. Because if we're not part of the tribe, well, we're gonna get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. And so you're constantly in this like dance between like, I want to be myself, but if myself is not accepted, then I'm going to die. Or that at least that's, that's the
That's the
wiring
feeling.
that we have as humans. That's the feeling. That's feeling the wiring that we have. And so, how do I do both? Can I do it sometimes and then see what happens? And so I would say what stands in the way of living an authentic life is ourselves, our own selves. We stand in our own way. Nobody else really does. Because if we can accept the fact that in this life, we have a choice, and the choice is to do life as other people want us to do it, so that we don't fear, we don't chance being excluded, or do life based on who we truly are, then the only real obstacle really is us and our own courage to do that and see what happens. And yes, it could very well happen that maybe not all people will exclude you, and will kick you out of the tribe, but some people maybe if it's even the majority of them. But it's really getting to like when it's, when we look back at our lives, do we want to live somebody else's life, or do we want to live our own life? And that's the biggest choice to make.
How have you two held each other accountable in practicing authenticity?
I think it's more the commitment just to talk it out. That when things feel weird, address it, ask about it, try and see what fits, what doesn't fit. We worked into our operating agreement something we haven't changed much, because as we found out later after you've started a company, like you don't actually need the operating agreement to change every 6 months. But we wanted to keep the idea of flexibility in there, so we put into our operating agreement that we should have the chance to reevaluate this and do this every few months or quarter or half a year or whatever. And it's part of that was the understanding that we're going to continue to make discoveries, and so there's this acceptance for the idea that change will happen. In fact, you can't stop it. You can't, even if you felt like everything was great, like it's not going to stay. Everything won't stay exactly the same in life, and so there's some acceptance of the fluidity of that, and then a commitment to try and come back to the table and be like, hey, so things feel weird. What are we going to do here? What seems better? And it was baked into the DNA of the company to begin with that we should do things flexibly and understand there will be some room for growth and difference.
Yeah, I think it also starts with our own selves. It's how do we hold ourselves accountable for being authentic, and so having the awareness of realizing like, hey, like I'm not feeling like I can show up authentically in this moment, and so then going to the talking it out, and figuring that out, but also creating also an environment where at least the inner circle will be the ones pointing that out. Sometimes we get so wrapped up into figuring out which mask to wear or hiding whatever it is that I know it's helped me a ton to have to be surrounded by people that will call me out on it. And even as a question, it doesn't have to be a shaming thing. But even as a question of, checking in and be like, hey, like things seem to be off, you seem to be off, or your energy's off, like what's going on? And so that helps a lot, to also have that external view, because we can get really wrapped up into our own games with ourselves.
Yeah, so speaking in terms of that and the own games within yourselves, in the book you walk through exercises like the values audits, noticing the voices in our heads. What surprised you the most in doing that work yourselves?
I think that one thing that continues to surprise me, and at this point, it's happened enough times to just stop being a surprise. It's that you end up learning And I shouldn't say you. I'm gonna go ahead and put this one on me. Maybe other people have done better than I have done. In doing this work, I have discovered that oftentimes I rediscover the same lesson over and over again. There's just things that like there's a new way that it's popping up. There's a new thing that like, I've got some internal narrative that is leading me down a path, and I will find just I feel like sometimes I'm playing whack-a-mole with all the different ways in which that narrative can come up in life, and you just keep finding it in new ways. You're like, oh, damn it, is this that too? Is this part of that thing too? Is this still that story? And you hit it, and sometimes you're like, oh, well, I've seen this story before. I know how to work with this. I can change my perspective a little bit. And sometimes I feel like I hit that, and it's like you stubbing your toe on a table for the 90th time, and you just want to like break the table, and you're just tired of like, for the love of God, surely I know that this table is here by now, and yet you've got a swelling toe.
I can definitely resonate with that. I would say also the how much you can really intentionally create an environment where you try something different. And so if you have that environment and you start recognizing when the environment is missing, because you start getting addicted to, oh, I want to change the story this time. I want to go around the table. I know it's there and my toe really hurts right now. But I have this story that if I go around it, I'll fall off the cliff. And if you create an environment, a supportive environment with the right people around you, you start getting the courage to be like, you know what? I'm going to try to go over the table this time and see what happens. And maybe there won't be a crocodile waiting to like bite my head off if I try something different. And then kind of like seeing like, oh, wait, that actually worked. I survived it. So maybe I can do it again in the next situation. And so some of those situations, some of those lessons start fading away. New ones show up. But those old ones start fading away because you've tried something different in an environment that allowed for the safety to be able to happen.
Yeah, working with ourselves.
I just get tired of like I just get frustrated. My patience for like learning the same lesson over and over is really like decreased a lot with age. The older I get, the more I'm like, screw this. I am not doing that the same way again. I'm going to try it differently. And if it hurts, fine. It hurts anyway. So I might as well. Like pain is pain. Like choose your heart. I'm going to try it. I'm going to choose a different heart. Maybe I'll stop the right toe instead of the left toe for once.
Yeah. Keeping with the theme, authenticity, values, and working with ourselves, you know.
It's
really good.
Well, it's also for me, having kids helps a lot because having kids, I constantly have this mirror back, and my kids are really good at mirroring the shit that I actually shouldn't be doing well back. Like even if it's just like saying something sarcastic or using a sentence, my kids are really good at repeating that back at me and be like, oh, maybe that's not how I want to show up. Now that I hear it, now that I'm on the receiving end of that. And so then it helps me constantly reflect and think of what am I teaching them in how I want to show up? What am I teaching in how humans show up in an authentic way? And do I do it perfectly all the time? God, no. Just the amount of time, the number of times that they reflect back, the times that I fail are a lot. But it's that constant, it's almost like a forced mirror. I'm in one of those found houses where there's like mirrors around me all the time. So I don't get to escape doing something and hoping nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I would say as far as values, because you did touch on the values, as far as values, I've noticed actually since doing values work as a client of a coach before even going to coach training, and then doing it again in coach training, and then doing it again in other settings, and then doing it again and over, and getting to the point of really knowing my values. It's become very evident what they are. So even narrowing it down from like the first list of 10 and I can't pick one to two. I would say that now I probably have like two, maybe three, but the third one could be incorporated in one of the two core values. And it's a little bit of that awareness of like, now that I know them and I have lived in them and I know what it's like to not live in them, I will not accept not living in them. It's just not, well, integrity being one of my top values. Like I cannot live out of integrity. Like my body will immediately react with lack of sleep, can't eat, I'll get sick. So physically my body will react to being out of alignment with my values. And as a person with the fun house around me, of mirrors, like I immediately start noticing when I don't show up as my best self. And it's usually because of a value misalignment, whether it's a value that's being challenged. That's one of my core values, whether that's integrity or connection. If those are being challenged, like I will become the saber-toothed tiger in somebody else's life, because I don't want to waste any time living in that environment where those values are being challenged, or when I am in my own misalignment of those, or having to repress them, or having to compromise them. That's when it's just a really internal battle. That like it's constant dialogue. It's constant. It's one of those like I'll go in a shower, or I'll be driving to the wrong school because I'm on autopilot when I'm driving, and I just have this like argument in my head going back and forth. That's when I know something's got to change. That I'm in a place of non-authentic showing up, not authentic relationship, not with myself, with others, and I need to shift something.
I like that values point. I think that values comes up so much when you try and think about who you are and what matters to you. That you have to come back to it, and I appreciate you saying that, Cristina, that you had to do it a lot of times, because I think that is a really important part that's easy to miss, because we can suggest a values exercise, and the first time you do it, it's very common, I think, to go with exactly what you're talking about. You end up with 10, and you're like, I don't know, these seem these seem important. I don't know how to I don't know what to do with these. And I definitely had that experience. The first time I went through values things, I think one of the better values exercises I did, actually, Aaron, was the one that you ran us through a couple of years ago. That was a really good, like, hey, what do values look like actually in action, and how do you turn those into kind of more who you are? And it was a much more in-depth and applicable way of taking values than I'd seen before. And that I think is useful, and I think it's worth taking the time to go through the values exercises multiple times, not expecting it to be necessarily like perfect the first time, but understanding and refining that so that we can continue, because the point isn't to get it right the first time. The point is to eventually get it right and to feel like you can be more comfortable with it. You can't just have it and be done. You have to really feel those, and they have to be really core to you. And getting that patience has taken a long time, but I think it's a good reminder that it does take a while to work and refine your own values until you can really say, like, okay, this is how I like to live, this is how I need to live, so I can't imagine not living this way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, authenticity and values. There's a big portion of the book dedicated to that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Okay, that was all the questions.
All right.
So that's why we wanted to start with kind of the self in leadership. We wanted to start with, hey, where do you begin? Because that's where your influence on everybody else goes. To your point, Cristina, we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, and to some extent how we show up. So how do we continue to get better control over how we show up and understanding of how we show up, so that we can give better space for ourselves and others? And so that's where we started in the book, and most of the book is concentrated on who are we in ourselves, so that we can then move on to, and we'll talk about in then future episodes, which is relating with others, and not only one-on-one, but also groups, and then eventually bots.
Yes, we definitely have a part on bots, so that should be interesting. So thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thank you.